All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Really appreciate everyone's time. Super excited to dive in with a panel of experts in the ad tech universe. Our panel today is called the AI companies that are powering the future of the ad tech supply chain. We have with us folks from Fivetran, folks from Meta, and folks from Creatify. Just real quick, gut check on the room. Love to hear folks' background. Anyone here is deep in the data infrastructure game, building data centers, racking and stacking? All right. Who here is in the advertising world? Brands, advertisers, media, awesome. Technology folks, right, covers about everybody. Excellent, so let's get into it. So first off, my name is Tim. I run a company called Latticework Insights down in Los Angeles. We are a data science agency. We focus on helping elite retail marketers optimize their spend, cut costs, increase revenue. We use data and technology to do this. Things like ETL, things like data warehousing, things like predictive analytics, building machine learning models, and more using agentic solutions to solve these same problems. We do this to help companies see their business more clearly so they can graduate to the next stage of growth. Things like media mix modeling, LTV CAC analysis, retention and churn modeling, FP&A modeling, you name it. Big companies like NBA, UFC, PGA, Gemini Trust, Reddit, you name it. So let's start off with the basics. So what exactly is the ad tech supply chain? So I'll start with a funny anecdote. So I have two girls, 11 and 8. We're on vacation. They're on the iPads. We say no more Netflix, no more Hulu, no more Roblox. We're going to watch and they show the ads repeatedly. What is the deal with all these ads? So about to launch into this whole thing about the ad tech supply chain. I'm going to tell her about reach and about frequency and about households and segmentation and targeting. And my 8-year-old turns to me and she goes, Daddy, she goes, I think I have menopause. And so I go, you're a little bit young for menopause, but go off, queen. Tell me more. And she goes, well, I get really sweaty at night. And I was just like, okay. And she goes, and the ad says that when you sweat at night, it's because you have menopause. So I'm like, all right. We have here a failure of the ad tech supply chain. So what specifically should the ad tech supply chain be doing? So first of all, we're talking about a $1 trillion universe. $1 trillion is spent on advertising every year and employs about 2 million human beings. I don't know how much GPU the advertising industry generates. I'm sure we can calculate it. But this chart is a Lumascape. It represents all of the companies in the MarTech universe. So can everyone see all the logos on screen? Can everyone read all the logos on screen? And the answer is, of course, you can't read all the logos on the screen. There's too many logos on screen. There's 14,900 companies playing in the MarTech universe. The average retail brand has their mission-critical data stored in between 10 and 20 different SaaS systems. Shopify, Salesforce, Amazon, you name it, they have 10 and 20 different applications in order to run their business. There's an expectation that out of that $1 trillion, if I put $1 into the ad tech supply chain, it's going to change hands through a bunch of different people. There's an expectation everyone's going to skim a little bit off the top. There's a big expectation that at the end of that supply chain, I'm going to generate $10 in revenue off of that $1 of input. There's going to be an outcome. Someone's going to buy a Nissan. They're going to buy some Gatorade. They're going to buy NBA League Pass. And when it doesn't happen, it's a big problem. So we have a big problem in ad tech, but we have a new set of tools to address that. So let's get specific before we jump into AI. To distill ad tech supply chain down, think of it in terms of inputs. Companies are bringing in lots of data. Shopify, Amazon, NetSuite, maybe Experian, credit card data. They're bringing that data via ETL into data warehouses. They're doing modeling, they're cataloging in support of people in production. People need to create ads. They need insights to create ads. They need to do comms planning. They need to segment users. They need to create the actual messaging, imagery, and video before that data then moves into these activation platforms. This can be done a variety of ways. Reverse ETL is one of them, pumping data back out to these activation platforms. Data clean rooms where they're joining data in privacy compliant environments so they can advertise on search and social and video and display and television and you name it. And at the end of the process, someone needs to sit down and analyze all that. Say, did this thing work? We should A/B test. We need to do incrementality. We need to build machine learning models to figure out how to target more efficiently so that the process can repeat itself. It's very labor intensive. It requires a lot of experts, 2 million human beings on the earth. But now we have a different set of variables. So everyone knows Mark Andreessen. Andreessen Horowitz is operating from a new thesis. They say all of the incumbents are going to get nuked. In fact, if you are an incumbent and you are using traditional software and traditional processes to run your business, in many ways you are at a disadvantage to companies that were born in the era of AI. In many ways, the tail should wag the dog, and you should build a company based on what AI is good at. So you can take advantage of these massive step changes in productivity. So, how specifically will AI impact ad tech? We're going to talk about it a little bit today. I'll throw out a couple theses we have about this. One way that AI will affect ad tech is the change of surface area of ad tech. What do I mean by that? You search on Google 3 years ago, some blogger would answer the question, Yelp would answer the question. If a blogger or Yelp did not have the answer to your question, you're out of luck. Now, generative AI will generate an answer to your question. When I'm looking to buy something, I would need to go to the website myself and buy the product. I can have agents do that. Agents are scouring the internet, looking for the things that I've instructed them to find. People are burnt out on social platforms. People are moving to in real life. Display, the screens themselves that people are using to consume information are maybe disappearing. This device, or all business plans for the last 20 years, have been filtered through this medium. There's a sense that maybe AI could break this stranglehold. Why am I typing on a screen to get information when I can speak the questions into existence? Certainly the efficiencies introduced by AI introduce the ability to produce content at scale. A gentleman named Doug Shapiro has a book called Infinite Content where he talks about what's this going to do to the media world when everyone can produce content at effectively $0? And furthermore, what happens when you build a brand from scratch? Most of what you're producing is content. So this infinite content and infinite brands, what does this do to CPMs on ad networks? What does this do to COGS and supply chains when everyone's shooting their shot trying to build their own brands? What happens to venture capital money and consumer spending, which is finite, and now we have infinite pressure on those networks? These are just a couple of the levers that will affect what's going to happen in advertising. So we have some super smart folks here today to talk about some of the components of the supply chain. We have Fivetran. Anyone in the room using Fivetran? Anyone using ETL tools, moving data around? Ripe for the hunting. Folks that need to move data around in an efficient way, model the data, move data out of data warehouses back into activation platforms. We have Creatify here as well. There's an AI-driven ad video creation suite helping you create AI-driven video, variations, do A/B testing, analytics, all in a box. And we have Meta. Anyone here using Instagram, Facebook? Okay, you guys should come talk to Parker afterwards. You guys can collaborate. And then you have folks like Latticework and a huge ecosystem of consultants providing sticks and glue in between all of these pieces, providing last mile solutions, trying to figure out, well, how do we get all this stuff to work? Very complicated bit of work. So, before we jump into our panel, I'll land on all of our avatar of ambition and AI innovation. So Sam Altman famously says, look, chatbots that we're using today is the worst we'll ever use. They're only going to get better. Is that true? think it's a good question. It's going to disrupt so many things. And I think it begs the question, is AI going to replace people's jobs? Is it going to make things more efficient? Does it make things less bloated? Is it going to make sure that the ad tech supply chain is more efficient? Is it going to give us artificial general intelligence, or is it going to give us Windows 7? Is it going to give us an operating system like the iPhone, which has no recognizable upgrades in the last 15 years? Is it going to become Salesforce, where every year 100,000 people descend on the city of San Francisco to demonstrate their last mile solutions to make Salesforce work for their organization? So which is it? Which one are we going to get? And I love this chart. I just put this in as my last minute slide. I saw this morning. So the Financial Times gave us their predictions of what AI is going to do. So either, I got phones up, that's good. It's good, good sign. Either we're going to see the end of scarcity and the era of abundance will be ushered in a short time horizon, or we will usher in human extinction. Or we will see a 0.2% increase in GDP. We'll see. So we have three options. So I'm going to get into it. I'd like to first thank my panelists for breaking time out of their days to share some knowledge with us. A round of applause for my panelists. I have Jeremy One from Fivetran. He's a product manager at Fivetran. He actually came from Census, which is an acquisition that Fivetran made. They were a reverse ETL platform. Fivetran is a forward ETL platform. They figured they'll put them, it's like chocolate and peanut butter. They put them all together. He's going to talk about how AI is reshaping the ETL universe, how they're using ETL internally. I have Parker Arrett from Meta. He works on the ads and measurement team. Works in the CAPI API. Folks who are using CAPI for doing things like attribution. Has a great point of view in terms of how AI is going to be used. We've all read the quotes from Mark Zuckerberg saying that, hey, listen, brands, just tell us the outcome that you want. Don't even give us the creative. We'll figure it out. We'll give you the outcomes that you want. Parker's going to dive deep into that equation. And Ben Pashman from Creatify is also going to shed some light on that, about how brands can leverage AI to create creative that connects with audiences at scale without having to use things like cameras and human beings and editors and so forth. So without further ado, can I get one round of applause from my panelists, and let's dive in. All right. I'm going to start with Jeremy. So Jeremy, I'd love to hear a little bit more about, for the folks that don't know, tell me a little bit about Fivetran, what Fivetran does, where they kind of sit in ad tech and marketing in general. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about your role at Fivetran as well.
Sure. Sure. So as Tim mentioned, all those SaaS apps, all those in that MarTech space, generating tons of data for you to be building, for you to be analyzing and making smart decisions on your campaigns. You need to be consolidating all that data in kind of one place, right? So that's really what Fivetran does. It's basically building out ETL platform pipelines, get all your data into a data warehouse, and once it's there, you can clean it up. You can kind of get to that golden record, those golden records, and then, like Tim mentioned, I was a part of a company called Census that Fivetran recently acquired. We took that data now, and maybe you're like, okay, here's I built my customer records, and I want to do my niche targeting or my very targeted campaigns. Census got that data back out to like a Facebook or a Google Ads or something like that. We support a bunch of other destinations, but like one of our use cases was also ad destinations as well. So it's kind of that full loop of Fivetran plus Census is that full loop of like how are our campaigns performing? What are our users doing? Getting all that data in one spot, being smart about it, and then like, okay, now I want to activate that data. I want to act on that, and that's where Census comes in.
Cool. And how many SaaS applications does Fivetran connect to?
700 or 800.
Okay.
And then Census activates out to around 200.
Okay. So if there's 14,000 MarTech logos on screen, how do you scale from 700 to 14,000?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So that's internally, that's how we're kind of trying to leverage AI to do that. We're talking right now, like the way that we refer that is basically the long tail connectors. So Fivetran have been around for 10 plus years now, and so a lot of the major ones have been built, but every day there's new apps out there. People want data from a new source. So there's a lot of effort in like how do we enable our customers to unblock themselves essentially. And so like we have a connector SDK out there, and then part of that effort is okay, can we eventually get to a point where the AI can help write the code or write the integration for our customer, as opposed to like having that sit in our queue for however long it takes before we get around to that. We're also doing some smart things around, not to get too technical, but like if new tables are added and new schemas are being updated, AI can be smart about just automatically picking that up, and that doesn't have to become like a feature request that sits in the queue somewhere. So yeah, that's how we're trying to leverage that.
Cool. And so I run a consultancy. We implement Fivetran. Companies come to me all the time and they say, Tim, listen, we want to move data from point A to point B. Okay, this should be super easy. Why do I need a company like Fivetran to come in and move this data? I just need to connect to the API, copy all my data, and move it into Snowflake. So why is this a hard problem to solve?
Well, I mean, I think it's a hard problem to solve when you're talking about. It's easy when it's just one integration, right? Because then, okay, this is what the data looks like. This is how I want it to look like, and I can just write one pipeline and do the integration once. But now, like I think you mentioned the average company using 20 apps. To maintain pipelines for 20 apps, that's a big pain in the butt. Every one of them has their own quirks to their API. Every one of them has a different shape to that data. And for you to do the right analysis, right, you gotta normalize all that data yourself, potentially normalize all yourself. And before you can even do the analysis, you got to build the pipelines, do the normalization. Like that's just a big, like that's why you want a company like Fivetran. Like it's basically future proofing your company as you grow, because eventually you're going to have to do something like that.
So people use Fivetran. They connect to all these various sources. It's a really hard problem to solve, connecting to APIs, bringing data into a warehouse, normalizing it. They get a bunch of insights. They segment the data out. Now they need to shoot that data back out to what? Where do they want to shoot that data back out to? Why is that useful?
Well, generally it's just for given that we're talking on an ad tech panel here, you want to now you've kind of married you have some campaign data you have from like Facebook ads, for example, and then you're like, how do these campaigns, other campaign data from other ad destinations? You also probably have like purchase data from your stores, from your ERPs. You have product usage data from your app database. So now that you have all that in one spot, you can do some pretty sophisticated modeling and some segmenting. And now you can have a really smart segment that you like a very targeted segment that you send over to a Facebook, to a Google, and like our users are always worried about like match rates. So, like you get higher match rates because now you're like, these are the users exactly that I want to target, and I know who they are because I've consolidated all their data.
Cool. So I'm going to throw this next question over to Ben. So Ben has been deep in the ad tech game for 25 years. And so some of the work that we were doing maybe a decade ago, the lexicon was DMPs, DSPs. We're going to move data into an environment. We're going to slice and dice all the audiences. We're going to shove them into a DMP. We're going to activate on the DMP. People are going to see display ads based on these segments and creative that I've built. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how far we've come from those days. And I'd love to hear some of the work that you're doing at Creatify, which is maybe a more efficient way of moving data around.
Sure. Thanks for that tee up. It was good to see that there are some marketing people here. That's kind of where we live. I wasn't sure if it was all going to be DevOps and FinOps folks here. So that's great. You're right. Probably more than 10 years ago, DMPs were the thing, data management platforms. Since that's evolved to CDP, right? Customer Data Platform. And again, I don't think those solutions have ever really delivered on their promise to have this one golden customer record that you can now use to activate campaigns all around. And that's why your business flourishes and Fivetran exists, right? It's never as simple as they state. And so transitioning to Creatify and kind of where we live in all of that, So we're an AI video platform, really end to end. So ad inspiration, authoring, publishing, and analytics and optimization. So kind of the full loop when it comes to creative. It's actually image and video, and pretty soon text to audio as well. And you can literally take any input, like it can be a prompt, it could be an image, it could be thousands of PDPs, product description pages, if you're a commerce brand. And we can build sight, sound, motion, compelling, sort of, I mean, not quite viral, but high performing video ads off of really any of those inputs. And we can build hundreds, if not thousands, of variations of those videos. And while that may sound like overkill, when you think about where that content is going to run, it's most likely going to run on Meta and TikTok, Snap, Google on YouTube. And from when I think of what Meta really is, right, it's the most sophisticated machine learning algorithm on the planet, in a sense. And it can only do what it does best with a large data set, right? So the more data you feed it, the better it's going to perform for you. And sort of the old way of doing things would be create a media brief and have an agency work on that creative for weeks, if not months, and then send those creative assets to a few different media outlets and let it run for the upfront buy that maybe you purchased 9 months ago, right? It sounds familiar. That's not how it works today, right? How it works today, ideally, for the highest spenders, for the most sophisticated performance marketers that are getting the most out of these platforms like Meta and TikTok, they're changing their creative daily, like literally, right? And they're looking at every component of a creative, the hook, the call to action, the script, the font, the format. Is it a sidewalk interview? Is it a podcast format? Is it a talking head in a bedroom? Is it a talking head at work or in a car, right? Is it male, female? Is it middle age or millennial? Is it a Southern accent or Northeastern accent or Hispanic accent, right? Is it one language versus another? And so when you start breaking apart every component of a video, thinking about what are all of the variations of all of the components, that's where things are today for the leading edge type advertisers. And I think that's certainly where the market's going to go. And I think the large platforms like the one sitting right next to me, that's what gets rewarded. And so if you're a brand and you're saying, I can't get my ROAS, return on advertising spend, to where I need it to be, Meta just doesn't work for me. My audience isn't there, or they're not responding. It's the creative, right? Like Meta has pretty much taken a lot of the work out of the equation for you, but you still have to, at least today, supply the creative to them in order for it to work as well as possible. And I know they're working on their own product as well, and we were talking about this earlier, all of these platforms, Creatify, Meta, they're all designed for self-serve, but there's however many SaaS applications there are, there's more agencies and consultants and designers because, it's still a little bit trickier than it appears that it's proposing that it is. And so, it helps to have sort of expert parties at the table as well.
So we've been living in this environment for 2 decades of data-driven marketing. Everyone's been talking about how creative needs to be data-driven.
Sure.
Folks need to look at data to figure out what to say and what images to show. Customers of yours, are they showing up at your front doorstep with like large data warehouses full of data? Like, how is it that you're actually figuring out what type of creative to show?
No, I think it's more we're starting with media briefs, and we're also scanning all of their socials. We're taking a look at all the content that's out there relating to the brand. We also have a competitive analysis tool where we take publicly available databases like the Meta Ads library, and we make them much more relevant and searchable, so that you can see what are the longest running ads by the biggest player in the space. Chances are those ads are working well, right? And so that feeds into our point of view as to where we should be running and what the themes are and what the formats are and all of that. So I kind of view creative as like sort of very top of the stack, right? Like we're not yet taking a customer database and purchase history and building one-to-one ads based on that. And by the way, that's really over baking the cake, right? And this whole idea of one-to-one, like how good is your data anyway, right? Like, yeah, your first-party data is deterministic, but how do you know you're reaching those users on Meta? Oh, well, because they visited our site and we have a cookie. Well, guess what? They use iOS, and that cookie gets deprecated every 7 days, and they visit on different machines and in different locations in different households. And so, like, it makes, marketing teams sleep well at night thinking that they have those customer records and that they have this first-party deterministic data. But, I like to say that creative is the new targeting at this point, because these platforms are so good at targeting to OKRs or KPIs and conversion metrics that are determined. It's like, how do you build better hooks? How do you build a better top-of-funnel mechanism to get those users to respond? And that's really what we're focused on.
That's cool. So Parker, I'm wondering if you could respond to this idea of pre-baking the cake a little bit. So you have an interesting purview on the industry. You're working at Meta. You're working in the ads and monetization group. First of all, I'd love for the audience to hear a little bit more about what you do day to day. And then I'd love to hear your point of view on the necessity of customers having to show up at Facebook or Meta's door with tons of their own first-party data.
Sure. Thanks, Sam. And it's nice to see that there's a couple of people in the audience that are using Meta products on their phone. Awesome.
Just not right now.
I'm primarily focused on the signals intelligence pillar inside of the ads and monetization org. So what that does is that is trying to gather as accurate signal as we can while maintaining or working within the guardrails of privacy and security. So we want to be able to have you target people as accurately as you possibly can, while maintaining a certain level of privacy with our users. So the importance of first-party data. There's a lot of ways that with CAPI and with a newer product that we have now called Signals Gateway, where it's actually a way that we can take multiple data sources and feed it in directly into the Meta pipeline. All of that is really just going to allow us to more intelligently target the people that you're trying to get with your advertising. And I think Ben's exactly right. I think there's a world where what works in creative this month may not work next month. What works this quarter may not work next quarter. So what we try to do is really kind of give you the opportunity to target the right group, target the right users, target them accurately, but at the same time, maintaining a certain level of privacy.
You hear this a lot of folks saying, look, you should start with the creative. And we talked a lot about like social listening back in the day. We would listen on social to figure out what the trends were. A lot of folks now talk about like listening with paid. They say, listen, we're just going to launch a campaign. We're going to see what the campaign tells us. Maybe we're just going to give the reins over to the platforms and let them figure out where to find the audience, where to find the right context, where to find the right time of day. Let them optimize the campaign, because I run a flower shop or I work at Procter & Gamble selling toothpaste. Meta knows how to get ads in front of people. So is that a phase? Is that a trend that people are just letting the platforms just sort of take things away and do the targeting and so forth on their own?
Yeah, I mean, you had that Sam Altman slide up there. That was, today's the worst it's ever going to be. And we like to think the same thing. We like to think that if we're going to target an audience and you let us do the work, that today's the worst it's ever going to be. We're going to be able to target better and better and better over time. That's part of that like signals intelligence that I work on. So you can hope that those things are going to get better and better over time, as well as, we're moving towards a world where hopefully you can go on to one of Meta's platforms and say that you want to set up an ad campaign and ultimately just give them the outcome. I want this many downloads. I want this many conversions. I want this many click-throughs. And we'll do everything from beginning to end and just launch your campaign. So basically, you're basically giving it a prompt. You're being as accurate as you can with what you want the outcome to be, and everything else will be processed by Meta completely end to end.
A little tongue in cheek here, but when you say everything, will you run the Google campaign too?
No, not right now.
Can you elaborate, because this maybe ties into your question. Can you talk about, does everyone know what CAPI is? Raise your hand if you're using a customer CAPI. Okay, I wonder if you could explain what CAPI is and why it is relevant.
Sure. So CAPI is the conversions API that actually allows us to connect directly to your server, allows us to capture events from the people that are visiting your website via Pixel, visiting your app, and allows us to understand those users on a more granular level. So that way we're getting the data directly from the people who are visiting your site, using your products, et cetera, and be able to, again, target those people more accurately.
Gotcha. And why? Like, why does that exist? Like, we used to have tracking pixels, we used to have cookies. Like, why would we use something like CAPI?
Really, it's just getting more accurate, more granular data on the people who are, that you're trying to target.
Because of Apple.
Since Apple iOS 14 and that ask not to track button, it also changed a few things.
I'd love to have Ben chime in on this. Do you need a mic?
Yeah, no, I must have flipped it or something. Yeah.
So Apple does a thing. It causes a lot of confusion for brands and marketers and agencies. What is this thing? Why is that relevant? Why do we have to create workarounds for this thing that they launched?
Cookies were sort of the everlasting gobstopper previous to iOS 14.3 or something like that, which occurred probably 4 years ago now. And when that happened and users upgraded to at least that level of iOS, and now pretty much everyone is past that, Apple would allow cookies to live for 7 days, and then they get reset, right? And actually, they treat all third-party calls that way. So I think Meta's conversion API probably gets reset every 7 days as well. And Meta has their own ways of identifying users, I'm sure. But generally, you need a first-party call. So building your own server-side conversions API is probably an even more effective way to go. Meta's CAPI is great. It's definitely going to be an incremental improvement over relying on cookies. And it just occurred to me, and I don't want to throw a zinger here. I know you're the one asking the questions, but it sounds like California is going to pass a browser law that gives users the ability to opt out of cookies on every single site as a default, and kind of that statement of it only gets better. That's obviously balanced with consumer privacy and tolerance for sort of the monitoring of activities and transactions and things like that. And so, it's going to make your job more important. Probably get a larger department pretty soon. But I'm wondering how you think that's going to impact things, both Tim and.
Is this mic working? Can everyone hear it? Okay. No? I'll trade. Yeah. I'll trade you back. We have a number of ways that we're trying to think about that. One is from a conversions API standpoint. The other is, again, from that signals gateway standpoint.
It works better if you're closer to your mic. Yeah, there you go.
Microphones. That's how they work.
Yeah.
And so, I think there's a lot of ways that we're going to be able to kind of move. There's no hurdle we haven't been able to overcome to this point. Yes, since iOS 14, there's that ask not to track button on apps, but then Apple released this SKAd network, which they then are able to share some usage, and then we're able to use server-to-server connections to kind of cross-reference some of that data and understand, how to more accurately and intelligently target people. I think it'll be just yet another roadblock that we can ultimately overcome.
Cat and mouse.
So I'll zoom out a little bit. So let's say 2020, the distant past. If someone were to say AI, we're using AI, what you would mean by that is you would mean machine learning, or you would mean statistics. And so when someone said I use AI in my work, they would mean I'm building machine learning models. I'm building a scikit-learn model on my laptop. Now it means a whole bunch of things. I think it's very interesting that intelligence has become a feature. You can sort of drag and drop intelligence into your pipeline, and you can have human-like intelligence in your app on your laptop with you. So I'm actually curious, how are you guys using AI day to day in your job? I think folks are curious, like, what are the real applications and how this impacts your day to day? Let's start with Fivetran.
Yeah, I guess there's two levels to that. One, from personally, myself, our teams, it's just a great bootstrapper. Like I'm on a connectors team where I'm responsible for 200 integrations. It's impossible to have the right context for every one of those APIs. I might have worked on something a year ago and I forgot everything, right? And so having AI there in my workflow helps me get 80% of the way there. It gets me back up to speed very quickly. So that's super helpful. We've also been working on AI like for our users and their use cases as well. Like, before, for very, very contrived example, but collecting email addresses, that's surprisingly very difficult. And they have a bunch of email addresses inside their data warehouse, and then they try to sync that over to a destination. All of a sudden, like a bunch of failures happen. Like these aren't valid email addresses. But now we've released a feature now where like within their database, in their data set, you can basically add a column and make an API call to a ChatGPT or something and say, hey, check this email field and tell me if it's a valid email address or not, right? And so like our users are also kind of they have their own workflows, but also through our products, they're trying to leverage AI to make their jobs easier as well.
Yeah, it's been really fun because I work more on like the product design side at Meta. I would say leaning more towards design engineering. And it's been really fun to, over the course of the last few years that I've been at Meta, kind of watch it evolve. Well, I think we're now living in a world where we can kind of take a shell of what is in production and have that locally and then run it through something like Cursor and actually start to rapidly prototype experiences that we want advertisers to have. And you're able to almost create, handoff code that is, very high fidelity prototype of what you want to create.
Well played.
I'm not going to say production code, but a high fidelity prototype to where it's very easy to kind of click through and understand the experience and really kind of work within the application in a way that you intend as a designer. So my day to day, I spend a lot of time designing, trying to really hone the experience, but then I'm able to deliver to engineering a lot of things that weren't capable a couple of years ago due to a lot of these coding programs.
Oh yeah, I want to hear from Ben. We're going to have time for maybe one or two questions after Ben tells us how he uses AI.
Actually, I think I just wasn't holding it close enough to my mouth. I use AI to make sure I have enough M dashes in my emails. It's actually the killer use case. So, I mean, from a sales point of view, right? So we have a sales team. We're using it to capture notes and next steps from all of our meetings, right? And then building very sort of comprehensive emails that really outline very specific next steps. Saves us a lot of time doing that. We're still a scrappy startup, right? So we raised our A round of funding. We've been around for about 2.5 years. And like, I don't have a sales engineer on every call, right? And then there's a bunch of follow-ups around API questions. And because our APIs are publicly available, I can ask ChatGPT or Claude these questions, and they're amazingly accurate, right? So I wish I did have a sales engineer sometimes, but ChatGPT is like it's insanely accurate when it comes to things like that. So being able to have important information at my fingertips, so that it takes me less time, I get the information back to the client faster. It's invaluable. I'd say that way for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
We have some super smart people on stage willing to offer some of their knowledge. I'd love to hear some questions.
Question is, you talk a lot about tracking users using your website and doing sort of the traditional way. How do you incorporate the sort of the new model of moving towards using AI, like ChatGPT, Claude, when people are actually looking for things?
Question is so ChatGPT is surfacing experience to users. They're not using necessarily Google to get answers. How are they showing up? And then how does that affect your guys' worlds?
I mean, for us, just generally the same answer would apply, I guess, to any kind of use case in that. I kind of think of us as the foundation. So as long as you're capturing that somewhere, like we're making it easy for users to like pump that back into your data warehouse, and then once it's there, then you have it. So like from our point of view, the data's out there. We want, like, if we don't already connect to it, we will, and then you will see it. But yeah.
There's a whole bunch of providers that are installing agents in website, like big pixel-based agents that service like LLMs.txt files or whatever the next generation of LLMs.txt files are, so that when agents show up at a website, an agent is answering the question. There's a concept that there's a unique user ID coming from ChatGPT, and they know what this person has been asking about. And so there's this whole new cottage industry of agent-based, pixel-based agents that will answer agents' questions.
Yes. Hi.
Use your product, and
Cool.
you're going to use it to launch to your product.
Fantastic.
And
Hell yeah.
you can use your product. What's your roadmap
Yeah.
now? Because there's a little bit of, and it's not just your platform, because I think you have one of the best ones because you are full circle,
Yeah.
and the others are just yourself figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But there's got to be this like CTA at the end. There's got to be this link, and then that link goes, to the landing page and all that, the whole thing. So what do you see as the event for
Yeah.
the system or and or
When was the last time you logged in to Creatify?
yesterday?
Cool. So there's a new feature called Asset Generator that it's literally like a ChatGPT interface, and so you can just put anything in there, a prompt, an image, instructions, descriptions, etc. And we now have video to video. We have the ability to replicate existing videos from competitors, for example, text to image, text to audio. So, I mean, the roadmap is vast, and we actually release very, very quickly, and we take feedback too. Like, we're still small enough where if you can get in touch with us and tell us what you want to see, and if you're getting frustrated with something, we try to get back to you and things like that. Do our best, obviously. And other things that you'll notice is that we're layering in all of the large MMNs now, right? So we used to have just our proprietary models, but Sora 2 and VO3 and all these other large models are just getting so good that it really became not productive to sort of go with our own. And so there's a lot more features and functionality. You can start with Nano Banana to build an image, take that image as your input for your video, and then use VO3 for that, right? So there's a lot of sort of best practices around these different tools. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.